Hello, everyone. It's David Hensley. Today, we're going to be talking about the role of a board and the qualifications of the members who serve on a board. Specifically, we're going to be discussing who should be representing you, who are the best people to represent you on the Moore County Board of Education, and those people's qualifications. There's a lot of misinformation about the role of a board and who should be serving on that board. For example, most people think, and it's natural to think so, that teachers are the best people to serve, or people from the academic industrial complex are the best people to serve on a school board. Nothing could be further from the truth, and I'm going to show that to you in the coming slides. So today we're going to cover the role of a board, who should be on a board and their qualifications, who's currently serving you or not serving you on the Moore County Board of Education, and why Hensley, Levy, and Holmes are the best choice to serve you on the Board of Education. The role of a board, any board, whether it's a publicly traded company, a town council, a county commissioners, or in this case, the Board of Education, is to represent the stakeholders. In this case, in the case of the Moore County Board of Education, you, the citizens, are the stakeholders, and the Board of Education is there to represent you. The Board of Education is an independent group to provide independent oversight to the organization, to ensure results, to ensure accountability, to ensure financial responsibility, and bring diversity to the company. So who should be on a board? In short, we should find the most qualified people in our community who are willing to step up and represent you to serve on the board. We want people with demonstrated success from their respective backgrounds. As you're going to see, the background isn't important. What's important is their record of success. Generally, people serving on a board come from outside the industry they oversee. And again, that's counterintuitive, but I think by the time we get to the end of this video, you'll understand why. Board members bring true diversity to an organization. And I'm not talking about the superficial diversity that leftists always talk about, superficial things such as skin color, gender, or sexual orientation. I'm talking about true diversity. That's diversity of thought that comes about through differences in background, experiences, and education. And then finally, although most companies won't admit it, but people bring members onto their boards. They want people with contacts and influence who can help the company, or in this case, the school system, navigate choppy waters. Let's take one of the most well-regarded and well-run companies in the world, Apple, and let's look at their board of directors. Apple has 6 people on their board of directors. They have Arthur Livingston, who is former chairman of Genentech, which is a technology company. James Bell, former CFO and president of Boeing, and we all know Boeing is an aircraft industry. Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. Al Gore, former vice president of the United States. That's where the influence comes in. Andrea Young, although it has that she's president of Gramea America, she was actually CEO of Avon, the cosmetics company, and recently changed over to be CEO of this nonprofit. Ronald Sugar, former chairman and CEO of Northrop Grumman, an evil defense contractor. The former CEO of Northrop Grumman is on the board of directors for Apple, one of the best run companies in the world. Susan Wagner, co-founder and director of BlackRock. For those that are not familiar, BlackRock is a super large investment company with trillions of dollars under assets. So what do we see in common for all these people who are on Apple's board of directors? What we see is people who are wildly successful and experienced with demonstrated track records of success. And most importantly, other than this Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, not one person their board of directors came from the telecommunications or computer industry. Well, unless, of course, you count Al Gore, who we all know invented the internet. So, again, a point to be made. Apple, one of the best run companies in the world, the first company to reach $1 trillion in value, has no members on its board of directors that comes from the core business unit of Apple. Instead, they have people with a diversity of background, diversity of experiences, who are wildly successful in their previous endeavors. Before people say, well, our children are not refrigerators, which I saw that as a comment when I made this, someone who's heard this speech before, let's look at the Board of Trustees for NC State. The Board of Trustees for NC State has 13 members. The chair is Tom Cavanis, if I pronounced that right. He's an attorney with a Juris Doctorate from the University of Virginia. You have Robert Andrews, who's former CEO, notice that word, CEO of FMI Corporation. He has a Bachelor in Economics. Ann Goodnight, the secretary, she is a vice president of community relations from SAS Institute. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science. Notice you haven't seen one educator on the Board of Trustees for NC State. But let's continue. We have Jim Harrell III, who is with a managing partner from a real estate development firm, and he has a Bachelor of Arts, and he's also an attorney. Stanhope Kelly from Winston-Salem, vice chair. He's a CEO of Piedmont Triad Partnership. And let's see what degree he has. Don't know. Wendell Murphy. Interesting. I had an uncle named Wendell, not a very CEO of Murphy Family Farms with a Bachelor of Science in Education in 1960. So finally, we run into someone with an education degree. However, he did not use his education degree. He was a CEO of Murphy Farms. Vin Poole, CEO of Waste Industries, evil polluting company, with a Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Engineering from NC State. So he's actually an NC State graduate. Ronald Prestige, who is a Bachelor of Science in Animal Science. That was my first attempt at college, was a Bachelor of Science in Animal Science at Oklahoma State University. And let's see, it looks like he is actually a veterinarian, and he was president of Prestige Farms. Perry Safran, founding partner of Safran Law Offices. So he's an attorney. Imagine the legal experience that that man brings to this board. Robert Levy, who's also running for Board of Education, is an attorney, and would bring the same type of experience to our board. Ed Stack III from Morehead City, Vice President of Administration Development for Jarrett Bay Boat Works. So he's a vice president for a boat manufacturer, it looks like, in Beaufort. And he has a Bachelor of Science in Textile and Apparel Management. Dwayne Washington, managing partner of D. Washington Group, a construction and development company located out of Durham. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies from NC State. Oh, look at this. He was a professional football player, played for the Minnesota Vikings, and retired from the NFL with 12 years of service. I did not know that playing in the NFL was considered service, like being a teacher, a fireman, a law enforcement officer, military, but whatever. The point is, he has a BA in Interdisciplinary Studies and is not, notice all of these people, none of these people are faculty or staffs in higher education. Edward Weisinger, may have mispronounced that, Bachelor of Science in Industrial Engineering, and he is CEO of CTE in Chardon. Finally, we have Melanie Flowers. Melanie Flowers is, oh, look at this. She's student body president, I assume at NC State, which actually begs a question. Why why does Moore County Schools not have the president of, say, Pinecrest and other high schools rotating through the Board of Education? When I'm on the Board of Education, I would advocate for that. So again, if you look at NC State's board, you're going to see it's made up of wildly successful people with experience and demonstrated track records of success outside of education. And again, you don't see anyone from the academic industrial complex on NC State's board of trustees. These are just two examples that I've chosen. You can go down the line. Select a successful company, select a successful organization, and you're going to see a board of directors, or in the case of education, a board of trustees, or in the case of local schools, a school board. You're going to see a board made up of wildly successful people who are successful within their areas of their areas of expertise. They have experience, they have diversity of education, and most importantly, they have demonstrated track records of success. So let's look at the Moore County Board of Education. There are 7 members. There is Elizabeth Carter, former teacher, Betty Wells Brown, my opponent right here. She is a former teacher. By the way, let's look at Ms. Brown. Ms. Brown was first elected to the Moore County Board of Education in 2016. So I looked up North Carolina voter search, and let's look at Ms. Wells Brown. So Ms. Wells Brown lived in Scotland County up until 2012. Then she moved to Moore County in 2014, and you'll notice Democrat, 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 Moore County Democrat. Then she decides to run for Board of Education. Oh my goodness, look, Betty Brown had a change of heart and became a Republican, nonpartisan Republican. Doesn't look good. And as you'll notice, she came from Scotland County. So let's see what Scotland County has to contribute to education in Moore County. So I am at the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction's website, where they have scorecards for all of the schools and school districts throughout North Carolina. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to select Scotland County, just here to our south. And let's see what great academic success she has to contribute to our schools. D, Carver Middle School, Scotland County. D, Covington Street Elementary. And F, I.E. Johnson Elementary. D, Laurel Hill Elementary. If you have never been to, I used to have a warehouse at Laurel Hill. If you've never been to Laurel Hill, you should drive down there and look around someday. Laurel Hill Elementary, a D. Look at this, Scotland Early College High. That is actually a vocational school. I think somehow it's run by the state. I don't know, it's a little murky, but they actually have an A, which is more than Moore County schools have produced. A C, a D, and a D, and a D. So I could not help but take this opportunity to illustrate the qualifications of my competitor. Stacy Caldwell, former teacher, now realtor. Helena Wallen Miller. She comes from the academic industrial complex. And a word about Ms. Miller, both her and the superintendent both came down here from Fairfax County, Virginia, one of the most leftist school districts in the country. Pam Thompson, a mid-level healthcare accountant. Ed Dennison, man, try to dig something up on Ed. Very, 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 very vague business experience and very, very vague retired Navy. And John Weaver, who is a mid-level manager with Progress Energy. Although he does have a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering, which is, man, I bow down to people who have electrical engineering degrees. Anyway, Unlike successful boards, the current Moore County Board of Education are at best mid-level managers without the experience to oversee Moore County schools, which is $120+ million enterprise. The vast majority of them come from education. Well, I just gave you two examples, Apple and NC State, where none of the board comes from the industry or the area in which that organization practices. Go look them up for yourself. You will not find a single successful company that has a board of it, that has an incestuous board of directors. Now, I am not knocking these people. Look, as I said right there, I'm sure they're fine people. They may be great teachers, a lot of happy students. They're just not qualified to run a $120 million plus complex. So what are the results? We have 4 out of 7 Board of Education members who came from the academic industrial complex. 3 teachers plus Helena Wallen-Miller, who has a company that does surveys. And then we have these kind of shady surveys, inappropriate surveys. But 4 out of 7 Board of Education members come from education. And as you can see here, they are failing at their core competencies, which is education. And again, 5 D-rated schools, 10 C-rated schools, no A-rated schools in Moore County, except for the Academy of Moore, which happens to be a charter school. The overall GPA for Moore County schools is a 2.13, a C minus. And oh, by the way, those scores are decreasing under the current Board of Education. The current Moore County Board of Education has lack of oversight and accountability, poor budgeting and reckless spending. They are expanding the central office bureaucrats. You should look at the organizational chart, and this will be the topic of another video. Super top heavy, let's see, Chief Officer for Academics and Student Support Services, Executive Officer for Budget and this, Director of this. Anyway, we'll talk about that another day, and all these people getting 6 figures and producing horrible results. Results include a weak rubber stamp board. It's kind of like the Stockholm Syndrome. Teachers are used to looking up and taking direction from the superintendent, not guiding and directing the superintendent. I was at a Board of Education meeting held up in Carthage when Stacy Caldwell was sitting next to the superintendent, and Stacy Caldwell raised her arm to make a point, and I saw the superintendent reach up and grab that Board of Education member's hand and bring it down and motion to her not to say anything. That's the fox running the hen house. The Board of Education is there to guide and direct and provide accountability and oversight to the superintendent and the central office, not vice versa. There's a complete lack of accountability throughout Moore County schools. I cite just a few examples here. 5 D-rated schools, 10 C-rated schools. As reported in the pilot, just today's pilot, under this Board of Education, they lost every single ACT score for Pinecrest juniors. 450 ACT tests gone, not having an opportunity to retake the test. We had an elementary, just a few months ago, Moore County Schools had an elementary school principal arrested and convicted and sentenced to 12 months in prison. And she's serving that sentence while being the principal of McDeeds Creek Elementary. Our children need better role models, and we need a Board of Education that understands that key concept. Many other examples exist, but in spite of the above, our dysfunctional Board of Education renewed the superintendent's contract several years early. With scores like this, 5 D schools, 10 C schools, they renewed the superintendent contract years early. quite frankly, he should be put on probation and given notice that unless he gets unless he improves the academics in Moore County schools, he's going to be shown the door, and we'll find someone who will. They renewed the DUI and child abuse elementary schools principal contract so that she remains the principal of McDeeds Creek. How can the children, the faculty and staff look up to and respect someone who is in fact on supervised probation? It's crazy. This is the Board of Education that allows principals of D and C rated schools to remain without any improvement. Quite frankly, we need a board that represents us and represents the children and tells these principals, tells the central office, you're going to improve the academic results of our schools, or we will find someone who will. And finally, not one central office bureaucrat has been held accountable for their many felonies. Let's not even talk about the school bus debacle and other crazy stuff. And we'll cover it in another video, but they have the most dysfunctional organizational chart that I've ever seen. Quite frankly, when you look at these titles, executive officer for this, chief executive officer for that, director of that, these titles are created so that these people can enjoy their six-figure income and they can continue to give raise after raise after raise to people in the central office who do not produce results. Poor fiscal discipline. The constant budget overruns in Moore County are both legendary and unacceptable. Seems like every month for the past several years since this Board of Education's been in office, they keep making emergency demands from county commissioners and showing up with the same core mob of 8 or 10 individuals demanding action. Always, always, always demanding more money. But if you ask them how much money is enough, they'll never give you an answer because to them, there's never enough money that they can pour into their academic industrial complex. They have disingenuous budgets. They will tell you, oh, we want to reduce classroom size. We want to reduce classroom size, which is important. But if you look at their budget requests, they want more people in the central office. They want raises for people in the central office. They want psychologists, nurses, and counselors. Their budget requests rarely request more teachers. And if so, it's a small amount of teachers compared to the number of central office bureaucrats, psychologists, nurses, and counselors, which is way outside of what the Moore County schools should be focusing on. Let's get our academics correct. Let's get all of our schools up to A and B rated schools. Then we can talk about mission creep and funding all sorts of social experiments. The Moore County Board of Education, what they're best at is making and allowing excuses, not demanding and producing results. The Moore County Board of Education doesn't bring outside ideas and solutions. See the problem? We've got the wrong people on the Moore County Board of Education. So who should we have on the Board of Education? Well, it's obvious. Look at NC State, look at Apple. We need successful people with demonstrated track records of success. We need people who bring diversity of background, experience, and education to the board. New ideas instead of groupthink. We need an attorney such as Bob Levy, who has experience in the legal trade, negotiating large contracts, employment disputes. We need businessmen, successful businessmen and women such as myself, people with military backgrounds as our military community grows in Moore County. And finally, we need people from the trades. I think it would be a great idea to have someone that started out in the trades and then ended up starting and running a successful organization such as a large plumbing company or HVAC company. That would bring a totally new insight that's sorely needed on the Board of Education. Most importantly, we need people who understand the importance of accountability, role models, and leadership. Our children deserve exceptional role models. Our faculty and staff of Moore County deserve leaders that they can look up to and respect. So let's look at my qualifications if I can for a minute. I spent 20 years in the Marine Corps, retired in 2004. I spent 7 years enlisted, 13 years as an officer. I trained Marines, I led Marines, I educated Marines, I traveled the world, I saw things and have huge experiences that are part of me. I'm a founder and CEO of many companies, the largest and best known being Quantico Tactical and Tactical Gear Distributors. For education, I have a Bachelor of Business Administration and Management Information Systems from the University of Oklahoma. I have a Master's of Science in Computer Science from the Naval Postgraduate School. And I have several vocational certificates to include I'm a Cisco certified engineer and a Microsoft certified developer. Accomplishments include, I don't talk much about my military because that was quite a while ago. I retired in 2004, but I was meritoriously promoted to every enlisted rank, and I'm actually fairly highly decorated. Daily, I manage complex companies with a global reach with budgets in excess of $500 million annually. Last year, I was a finalist for the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year. One of my companies, Quantico Tactical, was 525th on the 2019 Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies in America. And in fact, Quantico Tactical is the largest, by dollar volume, the largest North Carolina-based federal contractor. I'm a father of 2 students in Moore County Schools, so I have a vested interest in their success. I've created and responsible for thousands of jobs in North Carolina, something that I'm particularly proud of doing, and it's a focus of my day-to-day. I focus on it daily. And my wife, Lisa, and myself donate generously to areas of education, entrepreneurship, especially working with my friend Clarence Henderson and the Frederick Douglass Foundation of Minority Entrepreneurship and Education. So let's talk about when I'm on the Moore County Board of Education. When I'm on the Moore County Board of Education, I'm going to ensure academic results, not excuses. I'm going to ensure fiscal discipline and responsibility. I'm going to ensure that there's one standard for all with no favoritism and no cronyism. I'm going to ensure that standards are set and enforced. So important. It's so important that our children see standards set and enforced and that they're uniformly enforced. I'm going to ensure that people are held accountability for their actions. And finally, I'm going to ensure that our children have the leaders and role models which set the example and whom they can respect. So I think that concludes today's video. Thank you very much and have a great day.